All right, so first of all, product manager for Maximo Inventory Optimisation. I just want to check everybody's allegiance here. Who's, hands up if you're from the maintenance side of the business? Excellent. And who's from inventory? Got a few from both sides. So basically what I wanted to do was, in our role or as inventory practitioners and having a product that specialises in inventory optimisation and management, we're often faced with customers who have maintenance teams that can question why decisions are made around inventory holdings, and they come across situations where we don't have the right parts available, and what can we do to improve that. So I wanted to put a bit of a presentation together today just to run through inventory optimisation, inventory management from the inventory controller's point of view, to present to maintenance people, just to get a bit of an understanding as to what the pressures are that some of the inventory controllers face and what goes into making some of those decisions, to be able to share their side of the story, to sort of give you a bit of an insight into all that. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about today is, one, just understanding that perspective from the inventory controllers. Number two, how we as maintenance people can work with inventory controllers rather than against inventory controllers and inventory control teams. And then the last point I was going to show is what we have inside the MIO product that can be used by inventory teams and maintenance teams to help work together to bring good outcomes that the business needs, and sensible outcomes. Okay, so we'll run through understanding some of those conflicts. Quite often inventory is seen as the problem inside organisations, and we say, from a finance perspective, inventory is a problem because we got too much inventory, there's too much working capital in there. That working capital should be shared or sent back to our stakeholders or our investors to be able to return to shareholders, or to be used in some of the other projects inside the business. Why should it all be tied up inside warehouses? But from a maintenance point of view, it's like, well, we don't seem to have the right parts when we need them. So what's happening there? There's a problem with inventory there. So we need a balance, and that's where good optimisation and an accurate optimisation program comes in, to get that balance between the two, let's say, warring parties, to make sure that we've got the right materials available at the right time. So we can see up the top there's a number of reasons that we're holding inventory. So we're covering risk, and it's not always just covering risk. There's certain things that we need. There's regulatory things, which I guess is a risk if you wanted to look at it like that. But there's reasons that go into holding inventory, and in an ideal world, we could engineer out some of those reasons as to why we need to hold that inventory, and we potentially should be using a reliability approach such as the 5 whys to look beyond why we've got it, and dig deeper into some of those situations to see if we can engineer out some of those problems that we're holding, or some of those risks that we're mitigating against by having that inventory. So from a maintenance perspective, can we move from reactive to predictive or preventative maintenance? If we know when we're going to do a job, can we just move to a more just-in-time approach rather than having to rely on historical usage? And then that way we can bring down not all of the inventory, because they're still going to have to hold some inventory there for risk mitigation against breakdowns that we don't know will happen. But we can certainly get rid of that planned maintenance requirements if we're going to buy those in time for jobs that we're doing. Improving reliability of assets. So if we've got better running assets, then less likelihoods of breakdowns, less likelihoods of inventory to support those breakdowns. Trying to engineer out some of those. Another example is engineering out risks where we need to hold certain PPE for entering into confined spaces or doing some other high risk sort of work. Again, engineering out supplier issues. So where we can work with our procurement teams to better handle our supplier management. So if we've got highly variable suppliers, we're going to have to hold more inventory because we're not sure when they're going to deliver next. If we've got suppliers that are delivering outside their contracted lead times, we're going to have to hold more inventory for that. So can we work with our inventory, our procurement teams and our contract teams to try and resolve some of those issues? And as we can see with that picture down the bottom there, that inventory is just covering up a sea of risk and a sea of other problems that are happening inside the business. And we don't necessarily get to fix all those, but if we make enough noise, people will start to listen. So the inventory controller's battle is all about balancing the supply and the demand. It's also, balancing those different parties' points of views inside the business. So we're balancing the views of finance, we're balancing the views of maintenance, we're balancing the views of operations, we're balancing all of those different conflicting, positions inside the business. So we're sitting here, we're getting yelled at by two different directions, if not three or four different directions as to, well, you've got too much, you've not got enough. So we're trying to disseminate all that information, understand that clearly, and then work out what is the actual correct levels of inventory that we do need. At the end of the day, there are no winners because you're not going to make a decision that entirely makes both parties happy. It's trying to find that balance, which is what optimization is all about. What we've seen with some of our customers is the best outcomes are where we have our inventory or our maintenance teams owning the budget for our inventory. So they, the buck stops with them essentially. So they make sure they've got the right materials at the right time, but not too much because it's their budget that's impacted if they go over. The balance that the inventory controller makes, so basically the decision that the inventory controller makes is the reorder point and the reorder quantity. So they're concerned with two numbers. The balance of the reorder point is the stock out cost, so the cost of not having the material available versus the holding cost, what it costs us to hold too much. And then our max or our reorder quantity is our balance between our purchasing costs and our holding costs as well. So we've got to bring all that information together and make the right decision. And we use a lot of data to come up with those decisions. Things like lead times, criticalities, prices. So there's a lot of things that go into that. How do inventory controllers typically make those decisions? And a lot of it comes down to what the established processes and tools are that we're using inside the business. And more in these times, we're moving towards data-driven decision making. So we want to make sure that we're making decisions based on what data we have available, because someone at some point is going to come back and ask us to justify some of those decisions. I mean, if we have a stock out or inventory levels are creeping up too high, why have we got too much? We've got to go back through the data and explain some of those positions that we've taken. We have organisational priorities, which comes into politics a little bit as well. So where we have political stakeholders who hold more clout than some others, then that position will generally win over some of the others. Our inventory controllers have experience, and what we're seeing is maintenance people moving from maintenance into inventory control or inventory management positions. We've seen that a lot with some of our customers, especially over the last 5 years or so, bringing that experience with them in to be able to make some of those decisions as well. And then also our inventory controllers' relationships with some of their maintenance stakeholders, maybe their finance stakeholders. So whatever those relationships that those inventory people have, they're relying on those to get decisions made about how much inventory that we should carry. All right, so that's a little bit around what's going on in inventory controller's head. Inventory people, is this accurate, or have I missed the mark here? We're all happy with that. Any questions? All good? All right, so let's now have a quick look at how we can better work for the maintenance people with those inventory controllers to help them make better decisions, or help them make good decisions, or decisions that accurately reflect what we need as maintenance people. So the first one and the key one is, I spoke about data-driven decision making. We need to make sure that we've got accurate data available for those inventory controllers to be able to make the right decisions. So if we don't have accurate data, they're going to be making decisions based on problematic data, which might not be reflective of what's happening in the field. So we want to make sure that we've got all that data up to date where we can. This includes things like criticality, and criticality is perhaps the biggest input, or one of the biggest drivers. So if everything's critical, then nothing's critical. If nothing's critical, then nothing's critical. So we need to make sure that we've invested that time to go through and accurately rank the criticalities of our materials, so that when we're making decisions about what we hold and when we're balancing, what are the most important things versus what are the least important things, we can make a good call on those. We did have one customer doing a presentation, a group that we had a couple of months ago that's pointed out that inside their business they had goldfish flakes for the pond at one of their mine sites, and they were marked as critical. So they had to go back through and do a bit of a review because that's clearly not going to stop production if the goldfish aren't fed. Bombs, so what's that? Oh, well, you know. For the goldfish, you're right. Well, unless they can eat twigs and leaves and then whatever else falls into the pond, a bit of algae, or I'm sure they'll make do. There's workarounds for those. You could feed them a sausage roll or something too if you run out of goldfish flakes, you know. We've got alternatives. I'm sure there'll be something there that we can give them. Accurate bombs, so you need to make sure that where we're using important or critical inventory that is marked on bombs, where we've got inventory that's related to assets, it's marked on bombs, it's listed on bombs, so when inventory controllers are making a decision, they can have a look at, oh, where's this thing used? Oh, it's on this bomb here, it's associated with this asset. All right, well, now I can work out who the owner is, so I can go and have those discussions, or this is an A-critical piece of equipment. I need to make sure that, this has got high availability of that, even though the inventory is marked as E-critical, or very low criticality, it's associated with a high criticality piece of equipment or an asset. So we need to take that into account as well. Completing requests. So if inventory controllers come to maintenance teams, look, you filled out this form to get this new material, new part added to inventory. All you've put down there is red gearbox, and we need to know other things like manufacturers and all that. Make sure we're providing the right data and good data that we can make those decisions on and where we get it from. Correct work order type. So if we're issuing to jobs, let's make sure that we're issuing to breakdown work orders where we've got breakdown work orders, scheduled work orders where we've got scheduled work orders, because the trend is going to be in the future to reduce inventory through looking at some of those issues too, where we have higher percentage of issues to scheduled materials. Then we can start to move that from holding that in inventory across to some of our maintenance planners to get those purchased as part of a job pack or piece of work that they're doing, rather than having to hold all that in inventory. So we're going to make sure we're recording all that as we're going through as well. And yeah, making sure we are using good, or we do have work plans and maintenance plans set up so that we are cutting those work orders to be able to issue and have parts associated with those. So responsiveness and relationships, make sure we've got, we're working together as a team. And, you might, I don't know how we've got our relationships up at the moment, or set up at the moment, but you might want to have more face-to-face on a less frequent, so maybe once a quarter, once a month, rather than taking emails every second day from inventory controllers. You might want to encourage them to come to the site once a month or once a quarter and sit down for a 3-hour block. Let's go through a big list. Work out any approvals that you need for that and get those done in one hit. And also providing feedback. So if you're constantly getting asked questions about reorder levels for the same piece of material every month, let's feed that back to our our inventory control team and say, look, don't come back for another 12 months or 2 years, because we don't need to review this all the time. The other thing is to get involved, buy into the process. So where we're doing system implementations, jump on board, get involved with those projects, have your say, make sure you're involved with those sorts of things so that you get your buy-in. Similarly with operational readiness reviews, so where we've got new plants or assets coming online, let's get involved with those. We've got handovers, we've got coming out of shutdowns, and there's some handover stuff associated with that. Let's get involved to make sure that we've got our say from a maintenance point of view across as well. So now I just want to quickly have a look at some of the features and functionality that we've got in Maximo Inventory Optimisation, formerly known as MROIO. Who's heard of Maximo Inventory Optimisation, the module? Excellent. So there's a few. Who's heard of MROIO? Excellent. Who's heard of Aniqua? Excellent. So this is the progression that we came. It's the other way around though. We started as Aniqua and were acquired by IBM back in 2018. So the first thing we've got is an item change request. So we do have that functionality where you've identified, or an end user has identified, that we need to make a change to a particular material holding. It may be the criticality, it may be the bin number, it may be any sort of attribute against that material. You can jump in the system, raise an item change request, which will get fed back to the inventory controllers. They will then assess that and then potentially make those changes. If it's a significant change, they may need approval, so they'll have to send that through a workflow process, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is your avenue using Maximo Inventory Optimisation, or MIO, to have your say and get that feedback put into the system to make changes. And of course, accurate data is what we want in those. And the other way is workflow approvals. So as maintenance, we may have approvals that come to us for some changes that want or have been requested by the business, or have been identified by the system, or have been identified in some other part of the business that we need to make a change to some of the inventory holdings. But we may need to approve that before that actually those changes are implemented to the reorder levels. Finance may need to be involved with approvals where we've got large dollar value changes. Maintenance or asset management or reliability may need to be involved where we've got criticality changes or reductions to mins or things like that. We might need to provide a bit of data behind those decisions. We can see up there we've got some of the rules that we can use to trigger some of the workflows. We capture all of the workflow feedback from our approvers as well. And then we can see approvers get a little view there. They get an email. They can click on that email, make some approvals or deny, and add comments from that email as well, so to feed that back in. So the AI that we do have in Maximo Inventory Optimisation has been there for the last 20 years. Before AI was fashionable, we had machine learning. So the whole crux of the program is built around that, and we use that for forecasting our future demand. We have decision management for optimization, which has been in the product since day zero as well. So that's another AI an AI functionality that we have in the product. And we recently, over the last couple of years, have put in some deep learning for explainability. So where we can do some language generation and that to provide feedback to our inventory controllers as to why decisions or why changes have been made and why we've got new reorder levels. We are working on other AI use cases as well. So we're nearly ready to release our catalog cleanse tool, so where we've got our descriptions for our inventory. We have an AI functionality that we're working on, so we can go through catalogs, cleanse all those descriptions, identify duplicates, feed that back for people to go and then implement those changes. Criticality assessment, so we have rule-based criticality assessment in the product at the moment. But what we're doing is going to enhance that by adding additional AI functionality on top of the rule-based stuff, and then moving to explainability. So that's just taking the explainability stuff to the next level. So we're going to be working on that as well. We do have the capability through IBM Consulting and Client Engineering where we want to add something that's specific to our business as an AI functionality. We can bolt that onto the side of Maximo Inventory Optimisation, so you might have other use cases that you want to use AI for. We can take that data that the AI generates, put that into MIO. We can send data from MIO back to your AI model. You can process it in AI model and then send it back. So there's a number of different ways we can do that as well. So if you've got any use cases like that, no problems. All right, that's all I had. Any questions? Excellent. Thanks for that. No, any questions?